We've all seen people make really bad choices. Maybe at the time you found yourself thinking, that person is such an idiot. Maybe you can also remember times when your own poor decision making led to an outcome that you regretted. People can be baffling. It can be hard to understand why some people are never happy even when things are going perfectly, why others seem content to just sit around and do nothing even though they're clearly miserable, and why two different people can make wildly different decisions when presented with the same information. At times like these, understanding what motivates other people can be hugely beneficial. The DISC framework attempts to explain what motivates different types of people, how you can predict behaviors and outcomes, and what you can do to have better interactions and be more effective overall. DISC stands for Dominance, Influence, Stability, and Compliance, and is based on analyses of over 50 million people. It was invented by William Marston in the 1920s, adopted as a personality assessment by Walter Clark in the 1950s, and refined with computer modeling and statistical analysis by Bill and David Bodstetter since the 1980s. The book Surrounded by Idiots by Thomas Erikson, which this video is based on, provides an overview of the DISC framework and how to use it effectively. This book presents the reader with three main goals. First, it asks you not to assume people are stupid just because they disagree with you or take a wildly different approach than you, but asks you to instead consider their complex motives. The second goal is to learn how to best interact with a variety of different personality types. And third, to recognize your own weaknesses and other people's possible perceptions of you, and understand what you can do to relate more easily with others and be more effective. The DISC framework is based on the following assumptions. First, nearly all human behavior is observable, meaning we can record and measure people's actions and decisions. Pattern-based, meaning people tend to repeat the same actions and thought processes over and over. Predictable, meaning that based on observing patterns, we can make reasonable guesses as to how people will react in given circumstances. And changeable, meaning we can adjust our own behavior and influence the behavior of others. The framework presents the idea that you'll be much happier overall if instead of feeling like you're surrounded by idiots, you seek to understand what motivates people to act in seemingly inefficient ways. So much conflict could be avoided if we just understood why the people around us behave the way they do. None of the behaviors or preferences described here should be viewed as inherently good or bad. They are good in certain contexts and bad in others. It can be beneficial to tailor your approach to your audience, strategically ignoring the advice to just be yourself at times. That is not to say you shouldn't have a personality and be your own unique self. This is advice on how you phrase your argument and approach other people, not changing who you are or what you stand for. A conflict outlook, recognizing that conflict is inevitable and addressing conflicts directly with the attempt to resolve them immediately, is generally superior to a harmony outlook, avoiding conflicts wherever possible to preserve relationships and avoid discord. This framework explores tendencies and how people attempt to solve problems and deal with the challenges of life in general. It does not attempt to explain why people hold different points of view. For example, it does not attempt to explain why your lovely and otherwise intelligent friend holds wildly different political views than you, but it can help explain how that friend would set about approaching the problem of which political party should I affiliate with. A lot of this info is directed towards work and professional settings, but can be easily adapted to interpersonal relations as well. Consider tasks like managing your career, selecting a doctor, or planning a vacation in place of work projects where needed. This system is imperfect because we can only ever observe behaviors, then try to make inferences about personality and motives, which are not always completely accurate. This is a model, and remember, like all models, it is wrong, but can be useful. Part 2. The colors. Blues. Cautious, prepared analysts. Blues are data-driven, logical, and scientifically minded. They are the analytics experts working behind the scenes. They tend to be neat, organized, and detail-oriented. Blues are cautious and thorough. They tend to plan for everything, and they like to be 100% correct. Double and triple checking basic facts is not out of the question. Blues value logic and objectivity over feelings. They like rules and structure. They tend to be calm, balanced, and well-informed. Blues are observers and spectators. They value silence. They don't want to talk unless they have a good reason and are sure of the facts. They don't seek, need, or care for notoriety, recognition, or accolades. Blue behavior is largely driven by a structured cost-benefit analysis. They can be well aware that something is being done suboptimally, but won't feel the need to mention it if the payoff isn't worth the effort. It's enough for them to know they're right without everyone else having to know it too. Likewise, when they are upset by something, they tend to just keep it to themselves unless there's something to be gained by bringing it up. Blues are risk-averse and have a hard time dealing with uncertainty. They hesitate to start new ventures unless they have controlled every variable as much as possible, developed contingencies for every possibility, and have a favorable return on their risk-reward calculations. They tend to want everything they do to meet a certain standard and have a hard time letting things be good enough. Their frequent questions and requests for clarification can come across as suspicion, distrust, or judgment. They can annoy others by double and triple checking everything instead of just trusting what someone else told them. In general, they have a hard time trusting without verifying on their own. They have the highest standard of proof of all of the colors. Blues think in terms of months and years and don't mind taking a few extra days or weeks to make sure things are done right, because what's a few more days in a 10-year plan? Blues are going to work at their own pace regardless of whatever else is going on around them. This can frustrate people who want things done right now. Blues can be perceived as cold-hearted, dispassionate, overly critical, judgmental, and lacking empathy. Lack of overt emotions can come across as apathy. They don't get hyped up about things, and it's often hard to even tell how they're feeling at all. Blues are realists bordering on pessimists. They can be focused on negatives and costs at the expense of ignoring positives and benefits. Blues tend to lack charisma and don't seek out the spotlight, but will embrace leadership for short periods of time if it's the most effective course of action. They will even try to motivate and excite others in their own unique way, even if they usually aren't very good at it. Like Reds, Blues don't care very much what other people think about them, but unlike Reds, they do tend to be very aware of other people's opinions, especially when it's useful to be aware of them. No amount of charisma can sell them on a bad or incomplete plan because they will realize the shortcomings of the plan and will not buy in. However, they can be persuaded to go along with the plan if fighting about it isn't worth the effort. Blues generally are not accepting of phrases like, "that's just how things are," and "some problems are just unavoidable." Rather, they think that adequate preparation, planning, and research can generally overcome most barriers. Blues don't feel comfortable opening up unless they know someone very well. Until you reach that point, they don't want to talk about your personal life, and they absolutely don't want to talk about their own personal life. In conversation, Blues are not expressive, using minimal body language. They don't give much away and can be difficult to interpret. Most of their emotions are operating beneath the surface. They tend to want personal space, and they keep their distance from others. They also use closed body language to keep others at a distance. They tend to remain at rest and don't fidget or shift positions. They speak in a deliberate, measured, thoughtful way that makes it obvious they're choosing their words extremely carefully, without much inflection, rhythm, or melody. They always move precisely at their own pace, which is slowly and deliberately. Blues tend to let their emotions slowly build and then let them out in short little bursts, rather than expressing them fully and frequently like Reds and Yellows, or letting things fester and explode like Greens. They tend to be the best at actually not caring about something once they've decided it isn't worth the effort. Blues don't necessarily have to be introverts, but they generally feel very comfortable keeping to themselves unless they have a good reason not to. Blues are neither dominant nor submissive. They tend to think the leader should be whoever is best suited to lead. When that's them, they embrace it. Blues are generally direct when they need to be, but they often feel conflict just isn't worth the effort. Blues are fully structure-based, but if the structure isn't good, they're going to improve it, not scrap it or avoid it like Reds. Blues are fully objective and want rational supporting evidence for every decision they make. Blues are fully task-oriented and want to take the most efficient approach regardless of what anyone else thinks about it. Blues are deliberate and thoughtful in everything they do. They hate acting without a plan. Blues are realists with a slight pessimism bias. They tend to fixate on what could go wrong so that they can plan around it. Blues can make bad decisions because they spend so much time analyzing and considering that they wind up missing out on good opportunities and are unwilling to accept risk or uncertainty even when it may be beneficial to do so. They don't care if a decision is the best one, they just care that they know exactly what the outcome will be with zero shred of doubt or uncertainty. An effective Blue will be the best prepared person in the room and will tend to come up with the optimal way of approaching any challenge. Blues are the most reliable and will follow through on a plan that was agreed to even if they realize that the plan isn't the best one. They are objective decision makers that don't let emotions get in the way of making good choices. An ineffective blue will spend so long researching and deliberating that they miss out on opportunities and get so bogged down in trivial details that they underemphasize the key factors of a situation. Yellows. Social visionary entertainers. Yellows are the true extroverts, the social butterflies, the people persons. They are happy, energetic, animated, and outgoing. Yellows prioritize having a good time and can usually be found entertaining others as well. They love the spotlight and enjoy being the center of attention. They are open books and easy to read and are often good at cheering others up. They make connections quickly and have well-developed social notes. Yellows are resourceful, creative, innovative, outside-the-box thinkers. They love change and love trying new things. They usually prefer the new, innovative, untested idea over sticking to the routine. They are the most likely people to adopt brand new technology, ideas, or methods. They are optimistic and hate being dragged down into negativity. Yellows would much rather speak than listen and often tend to be very good at talking, or at least good at filling up the empty space with words, not necessarily at saying anything that anyone else is interested in. They may not have very much to actually say, but by God, they're going to make sure their voice is heard. They can take over a conversation to the point that others feel excluded. They can often be very bad listeners that don't really want to pay attention to what anyone else is saying. They can go horribly off topic and derail everyone else around them. Yellows can come across as vain, frivolous, loud, annoying, and unfocused people who don't take things seriously. Where they excel in vision, they lack in follow-through. They're great at seeing the big picture, but are often completely unconcerned with the details. They talk a big game, but can be some of the least reliable when it comes time to actually getting things done. They are not great at staying organized and prefer to just remember things rather than implementing organizational systems. Yellows have a hard time staying on task long enough to get anything done. They have some of the worst self-awareness and are the worst at honestly admitting to their own weaknesses. Yellows are great at selecting teams and creating a vision, but are bad at executing. Yellows will either be the life of the party or annoy everyone else around them. They are the worst at responding to feedback and constructive criticism. Like reds, yellows tend to move quickly and exude confidence, but unlike reds, they are open and inviting, often smiling, and often using touch to connect with others. A hand over the shoulder, a playful tap on the arm, a hug or embrace. They maintain eye contact, but in a welcoming rather than dominant way. They speak in a melodic way with a tone of voice that matches whatever emotion they are feeling. Like reds, yellow's emotions can build and taper out quickly, though not quite as quickly as reds. Unlike reds, yellow are more likely to dwell on the impact of their emotions and do what they can to set things right if possible, rather than expecting people to just get over it and move on. Yellows can be very focused on how decisions are going to make other people feel. They're amongst the best at bringing a team together in pursuit of a common goal. They tend to be warm and inviting, bond quickly with others, and are amongst the best at helping others feel good. They come up with new and exciting ideas and push people to try daring solutions. Yellows are extroverts. It is the core of their being. Yellows lean dominant, but not as much as reds. Yellows are direct. They have no problem telling everyone exactly how they feel at all times. In fact, they really enjoy doing so. Yellows are fully creative and tend to ignore structure. Yellows are all about people, feelings, and relationships. And again, yellows are all about people, feelings, and relationships. Yellows are fully spontaneous and impulsive. They go with the flow and follow their feelings. Yellows are completely optimistic to the point of outright ignoring negativity. Yellows can make bad decisions when they care more about feeling good, having fun, and getting recognition than they do about making good decisions or actually getting work done. They don't care if a decision is the best one, they just care that they felt good making it and everyone gives them credit for doing it. Bonus points if it gives them a good story to tell. An effective yellow is an absolute joy to be around that can become anyone's best friend and cheer people up when they're feeling down. They are visionary thinkers that surround themselves with the best people to execute on their lofty plans. An ineffective yellow will annoy everyone with bad jokes and foolish antics, stray off topic constantly, demand time and attention that others would like to spend elsewhere, and never shut up even though everyone wants them to. They can be hopelessly optimistic to the point of being unrealistic and alienate everyone outside of their immediate inner circle. Reds. Dominant, aggressive go-getters. Reds are marked by dominance, impatience, and perpetual motion. They want to act now, and they want to be the leader. Reds get things done extremely quickly, and they hate inactivity and waiting. They tend to circumvent structure and procedure to get things done more quickly, often sacrificing quality or safety for the sake of speed. They often don't care if something is done well, they just care that it's done. They want to move quickly and are prepared to make decisions immediately with minimal info. They don't have the patience to wait for those who would rather take a more deliberate approach or to spend time trying to persuade anyone who doesn't already agree with them. They have confidence that their decision is the correct one, even when it's not. Reds are optimists and focus on the positives of their plan to the point that they ignore its flaws. They focus on their own strengths to the point of ignoring their own weaknesses. Reds are natural leaders. They crave control and authority and will seek to secure or create power even when they don't officially have any. They will invent reasons to tell others what to do even when there aren't any legitimate ones. They're not afraid to make wrong choices or fail and have no problem quickly changing course when they realize they were wrong about something. Because of these tendencies, they can be confidently wrong and steer others in the wrong direction with them using their charisma. Reds love to challenge others and be challenged themselves. They enjoy competition and working hard, and they set high standards for both themselves and others. They are not great at coaching because they find it difficult to not just step in and do everything themselves instead of giving others time to learn. They can underutilize cooperation and teamwork and are quick to write off others or give up on those who don't match their pace and line of thought. They can ignore or alienate others to the point that they lose access to valuable resources and collaboration. Reds are sometimes aware of how others perceive them, but often they don't care because everyone else is too slow and incompetent. They're the type least likely to grasp the value of the phrase, "If everyone you meet is an asshole, the asshole is probably you." Reds are quick to express their emotions, but their emotions tend to fade away quickly as well. They might explode in an angry outburst, but they don't stay mad long. After they quickly move on, they expect everyone else to do the same as well. In interacting with others, Reds are often straight to the point and brutally honest. They don't want to waste time with chit-chat or by dancing around a difficult topic, which can be off-putting to others. In conversation, Reds tend to lean forward, maintain direct eye contact, and stay locked in on whatever it is that concerns them. They move quickly and authoritatively. They generally maintain a serious, confident demeanor regardless of how they are actually feeling. They speak quickly, directly, and loudly if they feel it necessary. Reds lean extroverted, outgoing. They are extremely vocal for the sake of accomplishing what matters to them, but don't generally care for friendly chit-chat. Reds are fully dominant. They want to lead and be in control to the fullest extent possible. Reds are completely direct. They have no problem telling everyone exactly how they feel at all times. Reds abhor structure and want to take whatever they think is the most direct path to their goal, regardless of structure or formality. Reds lean subjective in that if they feel good about a course of action, they're going to commit to it 100%, often ignoring evidence to the contrary. Reds are fully task-oriented. They want to get things done and don't care what others think about it. Reds are impulsive, because planning is a waste of time when you already know what you want to do anyways. Reds are optimistic. They feel fully confident in their choices and know they're more than capable of handling whatever life throws at them, and they're good at ignoring evidence to the contrary. Reds can make bad decisions because they care more about having control and moving quickly than they do about actually making good decisions. They don't care that a decision is the best one, they just care that they made it and they made it quickly. An effective Red is a visionary leader that has the courage to make difficult choices, resist external pressures, and act quickly to secure advantages. An ineffective Red barrels into challenges without foresight or planning, uses intimidation and forcefulness to coerce others, and is a domineering control freak and micromanager who generates poor results astonishingly quickly. Greens. Stable, avoidant supporters. Greens are described as being the core of society, the most common personality cluster, and the average of other colors. Greens don't demand much attention. They're sort of like life's background players in a way. The supporting cast of characters are what the author calls the core of society. In a very general sense, Greens tend to be content floating through life without making much of an effort to change things or achieve much, which, when you think about it, really is how a lot of people are most of the time. Which is not to say they are unimportant. The most powerful companies and countries in the world don't get where they are without legions of supporting cast members quietly doing their jobs day in and day out. And Greens do tend to excel in this role. They're generally dependable, reliable, team-oriented people pleasers. They tend to fit in, go with the flow, and avoid rocking the boat too much. They don't like to offend and have a tendency to avoid direct conflicts. While they aren't usually leading, they're generally quick to offer help, and they're the most likely to say yes when others ask for help. Though it's hard to say whether that's because they genuinely care or just don't want to create a conflict by saying no. Greens tend to be very good listeners and are often seen as kind, compassionate, and caring. Although they excel in one-on-one interactions, Greens tend to make the worst leaders because they don't want to make decisions or tell other people what to do. They avoid using direct, specific language for the sake of not upsetting things. They often wind up going along with things they don't really want to because they don't want to speak up about it and cause an argument. They hate attention, they are the least charismatic, and would be the worst choice to rally a crowd to support their cause. Greens are the most pessimistic of colors and can be focused on negatives at the expense of ignoring positives. Greens are highly resistant to change. They have a persistent fear and anxiety of the unknown. They cherish routine and predictability and are fairly predictable themselves. They like the system, and they don't like novelty. They generally try to avoid work and effort where possible. They're happy to maintain the status quo, if only because changing it is scary and requires more effort. And what if we change something and it makes everything worse? The Greens in the room have already decided that they aren't going to be making any decisions anytime soon. Greens tend to be very trusting, and because of this can be naive or gullible. Greens work extremely hard at avoiding work. They often take the approach of, try doing nothing and maybe things will work themselves out on their own. They tend to assign blame to external factors whenever possible because it frees them up from having to take responsibility for changing things. Thus, they are the most likely to complain about a problem without actually doing anything to fix it, but will internalize and silently dwell on things if they don't have an appropriate party to complain to. They can be stubborn and obstinate even though they probably won't speak up about it. They can use passivity as a form of control, as in, I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing, and if you don't like it, that's too bad for you. I'm not asking you to be here. Greens can also use self-deprecation to avoid effort, as in, I'm an idiot and will never get this, so why should I even bother trying? Greens tend to appreciate sentiments like, that's just the way things are, and there's nothing you can do about it. Greens tend to dislike active, full schedules, preferring instead to relax on their own terms. As long as things are at least somewhat tolerable, they're generally happy to sit around doing nothing. Green body language is all about flying under the radar. They tend to move slowly, deliberately, and in a relaxed way, with muted expressions and nothing flamboyant. They can appear closed off and reserved. They often try to hide their emotions, but aren't generally as good at it as blues. They tend to lean backwards and avoid engaging unless they feel comfortable. They're reserved at first, but can open up once they get to know you. They often speak slowly and softly regardless of setting, but will sometimes try to match their speed and mannerisms to the tempo of the group they are in. Like blues, greens let their emotions build up slowly and over time, but unlike blues, they often don't find ways to release them gradually, and when the pressure is built up to more than they can stand, they absolutely explode. And as the author notes, you don't want to be the spark that sets off the explosion. Greens have both introvert and extrovert tendencies in that they are comfortable and content being alone, but can also be reliant on their social circle for emotional support. Greens are fully submissive. They do not want attention, do not want to lead, and do not want to make decisions. They often get dragged into plans they don't actually like simply because they don't speak up for themselves. Greens are fully avoidant. They don't like conflict, have a hard time opposing others, and don't do well standing up for themselves. Greens love structure and predictability and don't do well without it. Greens tend to be fairly subjective. They dwell on how things make them feel rather than considering their true impact. Greens lean relationship-oriented. They'd much rather complain about a problem than fix it, but they also tend to perform well as long as their role is well defined. Greens hate novelty and love knowing exactly what the plan is in advance, but they can be a bit more spontaneous in social settings compared to blues. Greens tend to be fully pessimistic in that they generally assume changes are going to be difficult and make things worse. Greens can make bad decisions because they care more about maintaining the status quo and avoiding effort and conflict than they do about making good decisions. They don't care if a decision is the best one, they just care that it's an easy one and doesn't make their life more difficult. A competent green fosters a team that is firing on all cylinders because he gives them time and space to work in a way that works best for them. They can flex and adapt as needed to make positive contributions to virtually any situation. They are good at maintaining the status quo and are dependable when things are going well. Greens are aware of what's going on everywhere within their social network and are in tune with other people's feelings and needs. An ineffective green will stand by and do nothing while everything falls apart because they're afraid of conflict, don't want to take responsibility, and are afraid of upsetting the status quo. They will let bad situations linger on indefinitely by diffusing blame and avoiding taking any effort to fix it. Part 3. Techniques for dealing with others. How to deal with blues. Avoid small talk and avoid talking about feelings and personal matters. Stick to the facts and get things right the first time. Get straight to the point, give the exact answer, and don't sugarcoat anything. As with reds, blues aren't going to take things personally. Likewise, don't take it personally when they're blunt with you. Blues aren't cold-hearted, they just like to stay focused, and in most settings they don't like to open up or show their emotions. Blues ask questions because they're seeking information. When a blue asks you a question like, "Why did you wait so long to do this?" they are not trying to accuse you of being negligent or stupid, they just want to know why you waited so long to do it. Don't worry too much about trying to inspire or motivate them. Give them the information and they will make their own judgments accordingly. When you want them to do something that they don't want to do, you need to sell it to them from an optimization, efficiency, or cost-benefit standpoint. The best sales pitch in the world isn't going to convince them unless the plan makes sense and is supported by facts. Try to have all your information ahead of time and be honest whenever you don't know something. Make sure you explain the whys. Blues hate not knowing the underlying reason for a decision. They aren't going to buy into your plan unless they understand the reasoning behind why the decision was made. If you're going to criticize a blue, make sure you are correct and align on the details accordingly. Stick to the facts and don't bring up feelings. Don't trust blues with highly time-sensitive tasks that just need to get done but don't need to be done perfectly. For time-sensitive matters, form an agreement on how every hour of every day between now and the deadline will be used. Get them to agree that a decision will be made by a certain date. Conversely, do trust them with tasks that require attention to detail and quality and have to be done right the first time. Don't mistake blues' reserved nature and lack of expression for apathy or disinterest. Blues care as much as anyone else in the team or group, they just care in their own way and hate letting their emotions show. Don't expect blues to jump in and speak up when they notice something wrong. Invite them to speak up or they may not think it's worth the time and effort to point out the error. They often don't think it's worth fighting with the reds and yellows for more speaking time. As in dealing with greens, try to avoid spontaneity, stick to the plan where possible. But unlike greens, blues are fine with changing the routine, plan, or system as long as they have ample time to prepare for it. In fact, they may be some of the best people possible to help optimize methods and systems, provided they have enough time to work on it and they think it's worth the effort. Dealing with yellows. Understand that yellows need to be feeling good in order to be productive. They are the exact opposite of reds. If you want a yellow to be at their best, try to do something to cheer them up even if everything is going wrong. Never neglect the pleasantries and try to maintain a positive mood. Be gentle when delivering criticism and feedback to a yellow and frame it very carefully. Focus on the person and be optimistic. Don't say, "You've been missing meetings and it needs to stop." A yellow needs to hear something like, "I've been hearing people are frustrated because there's been a few occasions where they scheduled time with you and you didn't show up without any warning. I'm sure you had good reasons, but this is something I'd like you to work on for the sake of the team and I know you can do better." Try to set the tone of the conversation with a happy and productive mood as opposed to being stern and serious. Be ready to deal with excuses in a disarming way, even if they're bullshit. Something like, "I hear you and understand you, but I still need you to work with me on this." Understand you may need to repeat yourself more than once before the message sinks in. It's best to put yellows in charge of creative ventures, launching new initiatives, assembling teams, and interacting with people. Yellows do very well when working out the big picture and the vision, not so well when working out the details. It's often best to get the details worked out yourself and then just get the yellow to agree with them. As with reds, you will need to check in frequently with yellows to ensure they are staying on track. They tend to get disorganized, put things off, and lose interest quickly. Delegate the details and execution to others, preferably blues and greens. Be ready to listen. Yellows want to talk more than they want to listen, and they want to feel heard. At the same time, rein them in where appropriate. They will take over the spotlight and never give it back if unchecked. Let them be the main speaker of meetings, presentations, and so forth where appropriate, but again, make sure others have time to speak. Try to keep yellows involved in collaborative pursuits rather than working alone. To be persuasive with yellows, talk qualitative, not quantitative. Yellows have to feel good about something in order to really buy into it. All the facts and figures in the world aren't going to win them over. Use statements like, just imagine how our customers are going to feel when they see this, instead of things like, we can boost sales by 10% by doing this. How to deal with reds. Prioritize speed. Get to the point. Everyone else is moving too slowly. Skip the small talk, skip the preamble and context, lead with the most important piece of information. Along those lines, try to get things done early if at all possible, but never be late. Reds would often prefer to get 80% of the story in half the time as opposed to 100% of the story on time. Stay on topic and stick to the schedule. Avoid tangents that take up time but don't contribute to the matter at hand. Answer their questions directly and specifically. Make sure to avoid wishy-washy, inconclusive language. Be firm, be direct, and stand your ground. Be ready for war. Don't waffle, don't show uncertainty, don't use hesitant language. If you do, a red is going to think, this person can't make up their mind, so I'll save us all some time by making it for them. And once they've got that opinion of you, it's going to be very hard to break it. Likewise, reds are constantly seeking to acquire power and authority. Do not let them take that away from you when it is rightfully yours. Conversely, if you are uncomfortable leading or making decisions, a red may be a good person to turn to for support in these areas. Take initiative and offer suggestions, especially if they'll save time. Reds tend to think it's better to ask for forgiveness than permission. Understand that reds are the least reliable people when it comes to sticking to a plan and will deviate as soon as they think they can find an advantage. If it's important for something to be done exactly by the book or according to plan, someone else should do it. Or you should plan to check back frequently to ensure reds haven't deviated too much. Fact-check their statements and fill in the details. Reds can be confidently wrong while also being charismatic and persuasive, and they can make bad decisions quickly based on poor information. They also might not consider all the details of the execution of their plans. However, they're also among the most willing to change their minds when presented with better data. Again, be willing to stand your ground if they're leading you in the wrong direction. Don't take things personally. Reds don't tend to sugarcoat anything in the way many others might. If they don't like something you did, they will tell you straight up in the most direct language possible. It doesn't mean they think poorly of you, just that there's no point in wasting time dancing around the issue. It's not that reds don't care about you, they're just not interested in hearing about it right now. How to deal with greens. Recognize that periods of peace, quiet, and inactivity and even solitude are vital to their well-being and productivity, and try to allow time and space for that. Understand that they will face anxiety in dealing with new things. Try to remove or handle the variables for them. Create a structure that they feel comfortable with and can fit into, something that insulates them from the chaos that may be happening elsewhere. Guide them through periods of stress. Greens are the least likely to step up and take control when things get difficult. Instead, they do the opposite, shut down and refuse to take action. This can often be the exact opposite of what you need under these circumstances. Though it may sound counterproductive, giving greens a chance to step away from high-pressure situations and decompress for a while is often the best thing for their overall productivity. Try not to upset their routine if possible. Come up with ways to fit things into and around their routine rather than replacing it. Recognize that greens are not usually going to take initiative on their own, but can be persuaded to go along with someone else's ideas when needed. Also, greens might not speak up when they aren't happy. They might even lie about being happy to avoid conflicts or avoid having to take action to fix things. You may need to find out circuitously from people who the greens have been complaining to in private. Be prepared to take things slowly. Greens need the most time and space to open up and feel comfortable around others. Other people are unknown and uncertain, and they need some time to feel things out and quench their anxiety. Don't expect greens to be able to generate ideas or solutions spontaneously. They need time to think and will come back when they have an answer. Try to create time and space for greens to provide input. Greens hate being or feeling like the only dissenting voice in a group of otherwise like-minded individuals, even when they have the best ideas. Deliver criticism and difficult conversations in private. While reds might be comfortable airing grievances openly, greens loathe being called out in front of a group of other people. The same goes for delivering praise as well. While some colors, yellows in particular, may love receiving public recognition for their efforts, greens may simply want to avoid being made the center of attention regardless of what it's for. When you do criticize, do it gently. Greens are likely to dwell on criticism and let it really get to them. They may also be unwilling to take steps to act on criticism. You can help them by getting them started down that path. Develop a game plan, see how they feel about it, see if you get some enthusiasm or buy-in somehow. Remember, greens are the most likely of all colors to let something continue to bother them but do nothing proactive about it. They can use self-deprecation to get out of responsibility and can try to create a sense of incompetence or helplessness in order to give themselves permission to avoid taking action. You may need to counter this with encouragement and positive reinforcement. Like yellows, greens tend to be relationship oriented, so focus on personal impact and feelings. Some people can be very hard to place in the DISC framework. For these people, the author recommends acting like a green by trying to listen and observe as much as possible without disturbing anything until you have them figured out. Part 4. Techniques for managing yourself. How to tell if you're a blue. You hate doing things the wrong way. You hate wasting time. You hate being uninformed and don't mind spending a ton of time researching things until you understand them. You're detail-oriented and efficient. You're often the best informed and most knowledgeable person in a group. You miss out on opportunities because you're afraid to jump into things. You have no problem speaking up for yourself or working with others, but are often more comfortable just being left alone. If you are blue, understand that others may take offense if you insist on verifying everything they say with your own research. If you do insist on verifying, you can do some of it in private. Your lack of outward emotion may be taken as apathy or disinterest. Make an extra effort to tell other people that you care because it often won't be obvious to them. Try to understand that people use language in weird and subjective ways and will look for hidden meanings in the things that you say. Many people will interpret the question, "Why did you choose to do it that way?" as, "You chose a stupid way to do this." Also keep in mind that, unlike you, a lot of people don't appreciate finding out that they're doing something inefficiently or suboptimally. Many people prefer to remain blissfully ignorant over trying to improve and will resent you for calling out areas where they could be doing something better. Also recognize that other people aren't necessarily worse at doing things, they're often making a deliberate choice to sacrifice quality for speed. Sometimes that's even the correct choice. Try to get comfortable letting things be good enough where appropriate. Not everything needs to be perfect, and the time you save in one area can be reapplied to things that are more important. How to tell if you're a yellow. Your favorite things are social activities. You enjoy teaching, explaining, and telling stories. You enjoy being the center of attention. In most of your conversations, you're the one who does most of the talking. You're optimistic and creative. You love novelty and starting new things. You're often late, but schedules are usually just a suggestion anyways. You're not detail-oriented and can be disorganized. You come up with amazing ideas, but sometimes struggle with follow-through. How to get along with others if you're a yellow. You can be perceived as selfish and self-centered even if you aren't. Make sure you inquire about other people's feelings and actually give them room to speak, and then actually listen to what they have to say. Try to see others as your partners in conversation, not your audience. If you never give others a chance to speak with you, they are going to start speaking about you behind your back. Learn to read the room. Pay attention to how others are looking and acting, and try making some space if needed. Try utilizing organizational systems that you are at least willing to tolerate wherever possible. You may never be the kind of person who loves making a to-do list in the morning and checking off each item throughout the day, but you can probably come up with a calendar system you can at least tolerate to improve your efficiency. Bonus points if you can somehow delegate that function to someone else. Let someone close to you run a shared calendar if you have someone in your life that enjoys that sort of thing. Likewise, try to delegate the details of your initiatives to someone else and allow them to hold you accountable to your responsibilities where possible. If you are yellow, you're probably better at choosing the best person for the job than you are at actually doing the job yourself. Whenever you are estimating time, consider how long you think it will take you to get something done, then double it. Make an active effort to accept criticism with grace and open-mindedness. It is going to be difficult, but it can be a valuable step in improving. Understand that in most cases, people are criticizing your actions, not you as a person. How to tell if you're a red. You often get annoyed at how slow others are moving. You often find yourself just making decisions because others can't get around to it or won't make the right one. You're optimistic. You don't mind speaking your mind. You're confident taking on new challenges and generally believe you can handle things as they come or bounce back if they don't go well. You are not afraid to fail and learn from it. How to get along with others if you're a red. Understand that if you're too forceful, direct, and assertive, others may just start avoiding you entirely because they don't want to deal with your style of conflict. You will get left out of important decisions and events because people would rather just not have you in the room. Check your phrasing. While it feels natural to say, "This is terrible, it all needs to be redone," try something like, "Thank you for getting this started. We have a lot of work left to do to get this where it needs to be." Control your temper. If you have anger issues, work on those first and foremost. Again, others may not raise these issues directly with you, but there's a good chance they're undermining you behind your back. Try inviting objections and making space for others. Use phrasing like, "If anyone has any concerns, please let me know now." Then leave a few seconds of silence for those less willing to speak up, or invite other people to jump in and share their thoughts directly. Try to understand that others may not work at your pace due to having different priorities. Find appropriate outlets for your drive. Competitions are your friend, as are legitimate leadership opportunities. How to tell if you're a green. None of the other color types are obvious good fits for you. You're generally happy leaving well enough alone. It can take a lot to motivate you to make a major change. You don't make enemies. You tend to avoid conflict. Others tend to get along well with you and turn to you for support. It's not uncommon for you to find yourself stuck doing a lot for others and not leaving enough time for yourself. You are routine-oriented and don't like it when things disrupt your plans. Uncontrollable outside forces often get in the way of things that you'd like to do. You often feel stuck or powerless in situations that you don't like. If you are green, if you feel there are things missing from your life that you wish you could obtain, try getting comfortable making small changes and getting just a little bit outside of your comfort zone. The path to big changes starts with small steps. Try to get comfortable saying no. Other people won't hate you if you're not able to meet their every need, and if they do, they probably aren't worth having in your life. Likewise, try to leave enough time for yourself, especially if you're feeling stressed or overwhelmed about having too much to do. Make a deliberate effort to include some downtime in your schedule. Again, it's okay to say no to something simply because you want some time to yourself. Try to express your emotions instead of keeping everything bottled up. You don't need to reach yellow levels of blabbing to prevent things from eventually boiling over and exploding. Remember that change isn't always bad. While you have no problem pointing out all the ways something can go wrong or create an inconvenience, try making a deliberate effort to think about the potential upside to change and new things. Part 5, Caveats and Drawbacks. Have you noticed any problems yet? This model can be kind of like a glorified horoscope in that anyone can find pieces of each of these personality profiles that they embody, especially if you keep the descriptors general enough. You sometimes feel that others don't truly recognize all of your strengths and contributions. When you really want something, you will do whatever it takes to get it. The model is reductionist and based on stereotypes. Almost no one is going to be 100% of any color, but still you most likely identify with one or two of these colors and can think of some people that match up strongly with some of the other ones. As mentioned earlier, ultimately DISC is just a model for convenience. In a sense, it reminds me of dog breeds. Not all Huskies are alike, but in general, Huskies tend to behave very differently from Bulldogs and Chihuahuas. Personally, I'm about 75% blue with some red, green, and yellow tendencies. I found the author's use of introvert and extrovert to be a bit sloppy, or perhaps the understanding has evolved a bit since this book was published in 2014. Environment is a major predictor of behavior. People can be great in one setting and terrible in another. Someone can be a red at work but a green at home. Think of a commanding CEO who comes home and says, "Sure, honey, whatever you think is best," to questions about family and domestic matters. A green at work can become a yellow on the weekends with their theater company or sports team. And many people can exhibit red-like behavior when they become sufficiently angry, threatened, or intoxicated. On that note, people can change. I was very green in my youth, but have since become mostly blue as an adult. Similarly, the profile itself often changes. The model itself is highly fluid and often appropriated by different groups with their own unique take on it. The book also doesn't do much to address actual competence. Some people really are just idiots. The earlier descriptions of what effective and ineffective behavior looks like for each color type are my own extrapolation. Lastly, one should be cautioned not to be too malleable. Those who appear to stand for nothing are often perceived as dishonest, disingenuous, fake, or manipulative. This model isn't about changing what you stand for or trying to become someone you're not, but rather how you phrase your argument. If I could summarize what I think are the most important lessons of this book, they would be the following. For a majority of complex tasks requiring effort shared amongst many people, the best group is going to be a diverse one where we can balance out each other's strengths and weaknesses. And lastly, and perhaps most importantly, is the idea that you should treat people the way that they want to be treated, or you should treat people in the way that allows you to work together most effectively. This book presents a number of tools to help you figure out how people want to be treated, but ultimately each unique situation is going to require a unique approach and plenty of information gathering. What do you think about this guidance? Is it valuable? Do you identify strongly with any of the colors? Would the techniques here work on you or people you know? I would love to hear your thoughts. Thank you for listening.